All right, so we are back with finishing this Jubilee video up. So let's get into it.
Capitalism versus communism. Let's do this.
Yes, sir.
God damn it, Cam. God damn it, Cam.
You need a notepad.
No.
Yeah, bring my notepad.
You need a notepad.
You need the notepad.
That's cheating.
Yes.
I asked.
Only the rich benefit from capitalism.
No. Wow.
Really?
That's crazy, dude. The other socialists aren't going with him.
Yeah, I would
Only
expect
the
them to
rich
say yeah.
benefit from capitalism. Capitalism being the control of a state apparatus or a nation, government, state, whatever word you use, by a certain class. So if rich people are that class and they control that state apparatus, the government, that nation, of course they're the ones to benefit from it.
Well, they benefit, but they're not the only ones to benefit, you know?
Everyone benefits from voluntary
You guys
exchange.
disagree?
Yeah. You want me to explain why first before you go?
Yeah, hit me,
So
hit
I'm a
me.
Marxist, so I believe that society, through class struggles, transitions through different epochs or different modes of production, or different economic systems. So I believe that the Civil War was a revolutionary war in America that transitioned us out of the slave-based mode of production in the antebellum South into capitalism. I believe that capitalism is a superior economic system to slavery. In Europe, I believe capitalism was in many ways a superior economic system to feudalism. But I would argue and agree that capitalism is better for everybody than, say, slavery.
Like, you can still rise from the bottom with capitalism, and that's most societies. So it's like this possible for
She has
the
hope,
less
Sithis.
wealthy
She
to
has
climb
hope.
to the top if they have a good idea or
That's
like,
good.
innovate on something
Yeah.
that they think is a good concept.
We're talking about benefits, right? No, I see both your points. Definition. I know, now I'm being antithetical. I was telling you not to give you a definition. Now I'm about to give you a definition of capitalism.
We should establish definitions of things we're talking about.
Yeah,
right?
we gotta be on the same page about basic definitions.
I feel like when it comes to science and ideology, it just gets kind of messy. It's more. I feel like it's just so much easier.
I feel like the reason why he does, they don't
If
want
you decide a
to
definition,
define
I'll accept
socialism and
whatever you- I don't know about
capitalism.
these-
I feel like the reason why they don't like to define socialism and capitalism is because they like being vague about it, so that they can insert whatever makes their ideology looks better or not better based on, certain circumstances. When you start to define capitalism, I think it's good to define socialism and capitalism so that what you guys are actually debating about. I feel like if you can't define what socialism and capitalism is, well, then you can't really have a good debate about it. So.
Well, Sithis, objectivism is the weakness of subjectivism, and most socialists are subjectivists. So it makes sense that they'd be afraid of definitions, which are, by definition, objective things. It's a hard grounding for the meaning of the words. So if we start to agree on things, then we can start to build a case with reason, and that's very difficult for subjectivists, probably.
Yeah, and also the thing about only the rich benefiting from capitalism. Well, I think the other two communist people are correct in that when you transition from a slavery society to a capitalist society, or any society to a capitalist that isn't capitalist to capitalism, you start to see the poor become less poor and poverty go down, and you start to see the GDP go up and the standard of living go up, and all the good metrics that help people. You know what I mean? I mean, even if you look at China, as they moved away from communism and started to free up their markets, it wasn't just the rich that benefited from that, although the rich did benefit from that, but the poor benefited as well, because if you look at how many people who were poor and are now poor, it's a whole lot less. So, I think it's a little bit odd for him to say that only, the rich benefit from, but it seems like his communist friends don't agree with him on that either. So, I mean, All right.
Yeah, no, that's true. All right.
Nah, this is a trap. Hold on, let me finish this. But my idea of capitalism, I very much look at it within, again, very material, very cemented the idea of who has control over the military, judicial, legislative arm of a nation or a state. For an episode about capitalism and communism, we have not talked about class. Whatever class has control within that nation. And now capitalism would be the rich, the bourgeoisie, the job creators, having complete control within that society. Of course that would only benefit rich people. Of course you're gonna push for tax cuts. Of course you're never gonna talk about livable wage, you'll talk about minimum wage, just harm reduction.
It's a tricky one. I'm not sure there's ever a time when wealth doesn't concentrate up, including Stalin, Mao Zedong, Pol Pot. It's all Castro. You don't think Castro was a rich man who was benefited from the Cuban system?
Didn't he have almost $1 billion when he died?
But I want to interject real fast because unlike Cam, I won't just accept definitions.
Yeah, that's a good point.
When we talk about capitalism,
if you don't mind, hold on. You know, a lot of these people, again, like I feel like a lot of these people, they act like the richest people in the world are these tech gurus or the people who are on the Forbes magazines, you know, as the biggest business owners. But really, the people who are the biggest and most richest people in the world are actually people who own governments, like Putin, Kim Jong-un, fucking the person who runs China, the people who run the United States. Those people are the people who are actually the rich. If you look at these tech billionaires, these guys those guys' money are like just a drop in the bucket with the amount of money that these dictators and people who run governments have. Like in the United States, if you look at the bills that we be passing some of these people, some of these tech billionaires full fucking like we could take like all of their money and every penny and it would still not pay for all the stuff that the United States is spending their money on. So again, you know, a lot of people act like these tech billionaires, these billionaires that you see on these lists as the richest people in the world, but their money is just a drop in the bucket and compared to the people who run tyrannical governments or governments in general.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. That's your definition. But for most people, when we say capitalism, what we mean is the free exchange. And selling
exactly.
of goods, right?
Yeah.
And the more you have of that, the more freedom you have in those decisions, the less the government's involved in that, the more capitalism you have. And as we have seen capitalism expand across the world over the past 30, 40, 50 years, we have seen an 80% reduction in world poverty since 1990 alone. It was cut in half between 1990 and 2010. That's miraculous. We have also seen a 40% reduction in child labor. We have seen the mortality rate for children cut in half. We've seen the maternal mortality rate fall by like 43%. We work fewer hours. It blows my mind that somebody could say only the rich benefit from capitalism.
What evidence do you have that
Capitalism has
that's
done-
capitalism
Because these are
incentivizing that, not China's
because
poverty
we're
alleviation
measuring-
programs or the Belt and Road
Because we're
Initiative?
measuring as capitalism has moved into various countries, and we're looking at their poverty rates and their hunger rates, by the way, get cut. As more and more socialist and communist countries have fallen, which, by the way, we're down to only 5 at this point because most people are turning against it. As that has happened largely since 1993, we've seen more countries become democracies, more countries implement capitalism, and yes, sometimes it's
That's
mixed,
right, when
like
China
the U.S.
implemented
or the
the Belt and
democratic
Road
socialism.
in their poverty alleviation programs, though. So what
That's when
evidence
they
do you
did
have
what?
that that's not having an effect?
That's when they did what?
Launched their poverty alleviation programs in the Belt and Road Initiative, which are intended to build up industrialization in countries who have been prevented from advancing their productive forces by imperialism, economic sanctions, and the U.S.-dominated financial system that emerged after World War II, where the IMF and the World Bank can basically decide whoever they want to give financing to. So like when Chile went socialist under Salvador Allende, Richard Nixon famously said, "Make the economy scream," and the IMF and World Bank went from giving them $200 million in funding a year to 2.
Why do communist countries always have to depend on capitalist countries to succeed? Anytime they don't, it's because there was an embargo or they weren't giving them money. I don't hear us saying that about North Korea.
The Congo is capitalist. The Congo is one of the poorest countries in the world.
Yo, I hate these arguments about like a desert is capitalism. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yes, there's no authoritarian policies in this area, and that's capitalism. It's like one of the weakest arguments you can possibly make, because it's like, yes, we know that jungles and deserts and like the ocean and places where there aren't any people, we know that there's not capitalism there. We know that there's capitalism there because it is free. But again, like it's just a ridiculous argument, because you can't just, I don't know, you can't say that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would call the Congo a capitalist nation. I'm not sure, I'm not sure a lot of these people have the ideology of, free trade, capitalism, this and this and that. I think that's, like you said, it's just probably just a very poor country, not a lot of government intervention. There's not a lot of people there in general. People are spread out. People live in the woods and stuff like that. So obviously there's less government intervention, but that doesn't make it a full capitalist country. I would argue there aren't any real capitalist countries. Most of them are crony capitalism or corporatism or whatever you would like. It's certainly not a capitalism. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear about this too. I would rather live in a first world country that is communist than like a worse than third world country that is capitalist. And the reason I'm a capitalist is because I want to live in a place that is safe, that has a high quality of living, that has food, that has civilization. That's what I want to live in. And if the nature of the world was that communism was the right way to live, then I would be a communist. But the nature of the world, in the view of the objectivists, is that capitalism is the state that gives the most resources, the most power to the most amount of people, and it gives the highest quality of life. And that's why I'm a capitalist. So yes, even if there's like a third world country that was capitalist and a first world country that is communist, I would live in the communist country because that area itself is better. But I think that if we had two first world countries, one was communist, one was capitalist, the capitalist would excel over the communist country over time because people have incentives, people have freedom, and people are allowed to live the way they want.
Yeah, like if you had to have me choose between living in China or say living in some poor country, but they have a little more capitalism, I'm gonna probably choose to live in China. But if you were to take a country the size of China and give them and then have them implement capitalism as opposed to this socialism, the country that has capitalism would far out surpass the one with socialism, because free trade is what generates wealth. I mean, you can't really have wealth unless there are two people who are exchanging it. Because when you have an exchange, two people are valuing the item that the other person has more than what they have in their own pocket. So when you do an exchange, you're basically creating wealth. And when you don't have that, well, then you're just destroying wealth. And that's kind of how it works.
Yep.
Yeah. The Congo, though, is mineral rich. So much cobalt. Every single one of your folds needs cobalt to work. That is your real life vibranium. Capitalism has not helped the Congo. The disorder within the country benefits the capitalists at home. And
when you say they're capitalists, what do you mean that the Congo's capitalist?
Well, you better
watch.
Yeah, are they really I don't think they're capitalists.
You know who the colonizers are? China. Who's extracting resources out of Africa?
Ty, I love you. Terrible argument with me. Great with the other type of guys,
but just
but not
because you say it's terrible doesn't mean it's
to
terrible.
be clear, I wouldn't accept your definition.
Oh,
of
also another
capitalism,
thing,
but
if I want to
obviously-
say, the argument that these guys always make is that every single time there's communism, the reason why it fails is because of other countries. But there are tons of capitalist countries that have sanctions, that have things against them, like the same things that go against the socialist countries, and they survive and they're able to thrive despite that. But then whenever a socialist country fails, it's always because of capitalist countries. I just think that's a little bit odd. That capitalist countries are capable of dealing with all of these things that socialist countries are incapable of dealing with. If there was an embargo on the United States, it wouldn't destroy our country. If we had a trade, a block or a tariff on us, because China puts tariffs on us all the time. I mean, it doesn't destroy our country. We still keep going. But somehow with socialist countries, when you do that to them, it destroys their whole economy, and then it's because of the capitalist fault.
Yeah, the capitalist countries definitely has a lot more support beams than communist countries do. And that's just because it's decentralized, so naturally there's going to be a stronger foundation because it's decentralized. Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Accept your definition of socialism. That's what I meant. Obviously, I know what I think capitalism
Wait, what
is.
was
my definition of socialism.
Just so I know,
or
why is
communism,
China?
whatever.
Why do we think? Are you making the stance that supposed altruistic / centrally governed China is not a new capitalistic empire. Moving into Dubai, you see it there. Moving into Africa.
China is not America. There are clear differences in what America does in the Congo versus what China does. America comes in, they set up military bases. Unmarked airplanes
Not capitalism.
Come into the Congo with multitudes of American military and multiple corporations. You know what China does? They come in with intellectuals, with a document signing. Would you guys like to do this trade deal? If you do this, we'll build a mining facility that the state...
Wait, why is he making China sound like the capitalist country and he's making America sound like the authoritarian dictatorial country? That's crazy.
They do that whenever it they tend to do that whenever it suits them, and then whenever it doesn't suit them, they switch it. I don't trust
it. It seems like a bad tactic right now. I don't know.
They can run, and that will benefit your taxes. And you know what the Congo will say? They'll say no. And you know what China will do? They make a new deal. You know what happens when you say no to America?
And how does that capitalism
and the law?
Again, that has nothing to do with capitalism's
very
fault.
long tirade.
There's no perfect economic model.
Yes, there is. Capitalism.
Wait, what did he say? There's no perfect.
There's no perfect economic
model. Sorry to start already. One of the main misconceptions
I think capitalism
about
is a
communism,
perfect. The problem is people aren't perfect. People make mistakes. You know what I'm saying? So,
also, what does he even mean by perfect? Like, perfect in what sense? Like, morally perfect? Consequentially perfect? Like, I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, that is a good question.
I don't know what the context perfect is being used in. Because if they mean that in capitalism, you know, as many people get as much as they can possibly have, or the most amount of people get the most amount of things, then yes, but I don't know.
I don't know.
We want to establish a utopian. One of the foundational communist texts is Friedrich Engels' Socialism, Utopian and Scientific, where he criticizes these utopian socialists who are saying overnight we're going to create this perfect society. He says it's not possible. You can only build a better society out of the one you currently have. So we have to take what we currently have as far as a socioeconomic structure and figure out how we can build something better out of that. But it's never going to be utopian. There's always going to be problems. There's always going to be corruption that needs to be combated. We just want to build a system that's more rational and based on fulfilling human needs and human flourishing rather than simply profit.
So I think we would agree from capitalism's side that there's no perfect system because there are scarcity of resources. And again, I think you are always up against human nature, which has a lot of corruption, which has a lot of selfishness, a lot of self-interest. Why I like capitalism is that I think it's a system that acknowledges that and says, how do we restrain those impulses within people? How do we create a system where in order for you to get what you want, in order for you to get your needs met, or in order for you to get rich, you have to provide some kind of value for other people. And so that is what instigates productivity. That is why we see such large innovation gains. We've seen such big technological gains under capitalism. There's still going to be problems. I don't think there's any way to say we will never have people who are poor. We will never have corruption. But I think capitalism does the best job of taking what we're dealing with and trying to make it operate in a system where people are civil to one another and there's natural cooperation within it.
When people say a perfect economic system, it's like saying, what's the perfect science? Communism, Marxist-Leninism is a science. What is the most rational way to organize a society to make sure that it can actually see a future?
And if you read the debates within the Chinese Communist Party, they are constantly going, Stalin did this was right, this was wrong. You know, Cuba did this, Tito's Yugoslavia did this was right, this was wrong. They're constantly learning and experimenting.
Stalin wasn't open to too much ideas.
But we're in 2023.
No, but let's talk about the modern countries though, because within the actual communist countries right now.
Oh yeah, let's not talk about Stalin.
Let's not talk about Stalin.
Countries, period. One, because you don't have to. We just let people leave when they want to. So that's a big part of it. But two, it's because people know what's better for them and they are getting out of communist countries in droves when they can. The 2 out of the 5 top countries that are trying to immigrate here right now are Cuba and Venezuela. People are starving under these systems. And so if you're a pragmatic person, you have to look at communism's track record where it has killed millions of people. It is the leading cause of ideological death in the 20th century. And at some point you have to acknowledge that I care about people, I want what's best for them, but this isn't doing it. This isn't working. They also won't let you have a free press in any of these countries. They literally have a government-controlled press.
My TikTok's been banned 7 times after the U.S.
70.
Yeah, so
Oh, shut up. Okay, that's such a fake-ass thing to say. Like, okay, for one, a private company banning you from their site is not the same as the government taking over the press and not letting people say what they want.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
such a stupid ass thing to say.
Yes.
Oh, bro, but my TikTok got banned like 6 times. It's like, dude, you were able to make another TikTok. If there's a fucking government program that controls the fucking media, you're not allowed to start your own. It's literally illegal for you to start your own media company unless it's approved by the government.
The dude
Oh
literally
my
say
God.
USA is not running TikTok. It's still China, which is hilarious.
Jeez Louise, bro.
I mean,
That's disappointing.
Yeah. I don't know if TikTok's like still, what is it, 30-40% China shareholders or whatever, but yeah, dude, I think whatever. Yeah. I mean, it's still not a great, thing.
But fundamentally,
it's not a
like,
great case.
if a private company doesn't want you on its platform, it doesn't have to have you on its platform. But it's a bit different when it comes to the government, because the government's literally saying you can't have a platform anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, like it's different to say like you can't be on my platform versus you can't have a platform at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
TikTok is still China.
You're wrong. You're wrong. The U.S. government forced TikTok to hand over American servers to a company in Texas called Oracle, who proceeded to hire a bunch of U.S. State Department operatives and NATO operatives, and that's when we got banned. So
And that's why I can't talk about
no
Google
longer,
on
it's no longer run by China.
Yeah, but that's not capitalism,
I'm just
right?
saying there's no
Yeah, that's
freedom
the
of press in
government.
US either.
Yeah, again, like every
freedom of
time they
press?
have an argument, every time they have an argument against what they perceive to be capitalism, it seems like the government, oh yeah, but the United States government literally went and did this. Well, it's just like, dude, that's not capitalism. Forcing people to do what you want without their consent is not a voluntary exchange of goods and services between 2 consenting adults. Again, this is why it's very important to state what you mean by capitalism. What do these people mean when they say capitalism? Do they mean countries that call themselves capitalism, or are they talking about free exchange of goods between 2 consenting parties? Because when we talk about capitalism, we're talking about free exchange of goods between 2 consenting parties. If you're saying, oh, the United States government did this, what you're describing is a country that calls themselves capitalist doing something that you don't like. That's not capitalism.
When you roll the tanks in, it's capitalism, baby.
Yeah, that's more along the lines of your ideologies. Common ownership of the means of production, group control of goods and resources. That's more socialism.
Yeah.
Mean in a country that imprisons the most people in the world?
That's a great question. Super opposed to it. It means that the government is too big. There's too many laws. We make things that are non-violent
So
that
the
have
US
nothing
is
to do.
communist.
Listen, if I'm a capitalist,
Yes.
I want to protect people.
Abolish the state.
Those are the only laws that
If
should
you're a
exist.
capitalist, you protect the
And if you
protect
violate those
property
two
and
things-
property.
No,
Profit
people's
and property.
personhood.
Yo, dude. I hate
Wait, what did he
how
say?
people. He said profits and property. Profits and property. I hate when people equate profit to being evil. Profit is not evil, okay? It is neutral. It is neither good nor evil. There's nothing wrong with, like, if you are somebody who's made a fantastic mug and you're like, man, I'm really damn good at making mugs to drink coffee from. And then you're like, okay, I want to start selling these mugs to my neighbors. And you sell like 10 mugs. How is that any different from somebody who sold 1,000 mugs? The thing is, there's nothing wrong with profit. There's nothing wrong. And he will even say this. He would probably say, go get your bag, girl, to like a prostitute or something like that. He would say that. And it's because he's okay with profit. He's not okay when he doesn't like profit. He doesn't like that. So it's just like super hypocritical. There's nothing wrong with profit. It's how you attain the profit that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Like these people, everybody believes the prophet, whether they say they do or not. I mean, because being in a company and making a more money than what you spent to create the business isn't the only way in which you could profit off of something. There's something that a lot of anarcho-capitalists call a psychic profit, right? So, for
Yeah.
instance, if I usually give this example, let's say like there's a homeless person on the road, and I feel bad for the homeless guy, and I want to give him $1, right? In that situation, technically, I'm not really profiting financially, right? In fact, I'm losing money right there. But the reason why I did it is because I'm psychologically profiting. I feel better about doing that. People don't
You're
just do things for no reason.
altruistically profiting.
Yeah, like we call it a psychic profit because it's
Yeah.
it's in your head that you feel like you're profiting, so everybody profits, whether they say they do or they say they don't, it's just and I think it's a little bit arbitrary to be like, oh, well, you're not allowed to financially profit, but you're allowed to psychologically profit, or you can't exchange this, like like it. Why is it like financial profit bad, but like this profit is not okay? I wonder what is what differentiates it. You know what I mean? Because to me, it seems like no matter what, you're profiting. You're gaining more than what you believe you're gaining more than what you spent on that thing. Because if you didn't, well, then you wouldn't do it. People are rational beings. They don't do things for no reason. We're not robots. We act in order to achieve a better outcome than what we would have done had we not acted. Praxeology.
Correct. I have yet to see a good case that profit is wrong. I have yet to see one, because if you're not forcing anybody to do anything against their will, I don't see why it's wrong to want more money. I just don't see it. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it's one thing if you're like forcing somebody down and making them give you money. I mean, yeah, obviously that's bad, but it's not profiting itself that makes it bad. It's the fact that you're forcing somebody to do what you want.
Yeah. Or if you're treating somebody badly, like if you have employees and you treat your employees badly, it's not the profit that's bad. You're treating your employees badly. That's what's bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
And their property. Individual liberty is essential under capitalism.
What are tax cuts?
You pay everything that you're supposed to, and then they give you money back.
So you have more money if there's a tax cut, right? You have more money if you have a tax
more
cut.
of your money that they took that comes back to you.
Okay, so with those tax cuts that just happened, who has more of their money?
What do you mean, who has more of their money? No,
What
spell it out for me.
I got
The rich.
people gets to keep more of their money. Who?
Well, I presume it's the people
that's not a good argument.
money, obviously.
Who makes the most?
We should be allowed to keep all of our money. That's
Yes.
And if you get a tax cut, you're going to get more back because
Are you
made more.
referring to like Trump only
that's
giving
absurd.
like tax cuts?
Okay,
to rich people?
okay.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So again, yes, because rich people have more money. If you cut taxes, they're gonna benefit more because they have more money. But again, I think the argument that these guys are making is when people have more of their own money, well, then they spend it, and then that juvenates the economy. That like makes the economy work more. That's what makes the economy run. You know what I mean? So when people have more of their money, they have more money to spend, and that gives them more wealth. So that's the point that he's trying to make. So I think he's trying to push him to be like, oh, well, yeah, if you lower taxes, there's going to be more money for the rich. Yeah, technically that's true, but that's their money in the first place. You know what I mean? Taxes aren't, it's not something that is owed to the government and then, that isn't yours and you have to give it to the government. That's something that is yours and the government is taking from you. You know what I mean? So when the government doesn't tax you, what they're doing is they're allowing you to keep more of your money. You know what I mean? And that's the thing with like a lot of socialists. They'd be like, they kind of look at it as that money is the government and they're just letting you keep your money. But no, it's actually your money and you're just getting, and the government is just stealing less of it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, as a socialist, I'm not really here to argue for taxes. I'm more to argue for worker ownership of the means of production. But I think Buddy wanted to go.
Yeah,
Okay, but how do you do that?
I guess hypothetically in capitalism, you have free market, correct? So when free market occurs, it goes to near zero profit, correct?
when a free market occurs, it
In a
goes to
free
zero
market,
profit.
Yes,
the
yeah, she's
equilibrium
right.
point is near zero
Yeah.
profit because they'll keep undercutting each other until they maximize demand.
Why would they work or do anything?
She's talking about the business
I'm
side.
talking about
classic
like,
economics.
Yeah, classic economics. But let's say hypothetically, like Amazon is a prime example. They keep pricing, like I guess, like earning less and less profit. So wouldn't that create monopolies? And I mean, that's how you want to get more demand, right?
Okay, so first of all, like capitalists are going to be generally against like trusts and monopolies, but like at
But
the
it
same time,
creates
like how
monopolies.
could
It doesn't.
how could no, it
Yeah.
does not every time. How
Or oligopolies.
But
Yeah,
isn't-
oligopolies
but
or
isn't
monopolies.
Chinese state economy the
how could
ultimate
a
monopoly?
socialist argue? Yeah, exactly. It's rich to men when socialists or communists argue against monopolies, or they use that as a hitting point against capitalists. When like the biggest and most powerful monopoly that you could possibly have is a
that's not a
state.
monopoly.
Is a state-owned monopoly. Yes, it is absolutely.
It is a
How are you
monopoly.
gonna
Because
break
there's
up
no
monopolies without
competition.
the
Yeah.
state? What apparatus is going to come in
you
and
don't
break?
actually
And in a lot of these,
Mono-
can I make one
okay.
point to it? In
I'm
all
okay
these
with it.
socialist
You can't have monopolies without a state. If there's no force being done, there's no. Okay, so for instance, like Amazon, right? If there's nothing stopping you from competing with Amazon, well, then they're no longer a monopoly. What makes a monopoly is there has to be something that is forcing their competition not to compete with them, right? So for
Yeah.
instance, with the state, if you can't start your own police station and compete with the police, you can't start your own Fed and compete with the Federal Reserve. You can't start your own currency. You can't start anything that the state takes over. You can't compete with them because they then become the monopoly over that thing. They literally are saying that we are the only ones that are allowed to provide this service. So also when it comes to like monopolies, like in under our current system, all the monopolies that we have, or quote unquote monopolies, the reason why they are able to become that big is because they have what they do is they pay the government, they lobby the government to then put in laws to then make it really hard for their competition to basically compete with them. And that's like, for instance, like patent laws, regulations, minimum wages, rent controls, like occupational licensing laws. These are all laws that basically make it so that people are not able to. It's like quite literally illegal for you to compete with these companies. So if that wasn't there, pretty much anyone would be able to come into the market and compete with them. So the state is quite literally the ones that create monopolies. You in a total free market, there would be nothing that you could do to stop another person from creating the same product that you've created, except for forcing them. But then that wouldn't be capitalism anymore. There would be nothing to stop them from competing with you. The only things that stops people from competing with you is the state. A group of people that forces their will upon other people without their consent.
Yeah, and I mean, so the thing about efficiency monopolies, which is what she's talking about when a business is so extraordinarily better than all its competing businesses that it can like reduce its prices dramatically. I don't see anything wrong with a efficiency monopoly because they're still not using coercion or force in order to get people to buy their products. Their product is just so high quality that people want it so much more than all of its competitors. And
yeah,
I don't see how that's a bad monopoly. Like that is an efficiency monopoly, but I don't see how that's bad. You know what I mean? It's almost like
absolutely.
All monopolies aren't intrinsically bad. It's like maybe it becomes bad when you coerce people.
And I wouldn't really like. The thing is, when you coerce people, that's when you become a criminal organization. But when we're talking about capitalism, right? Two people undercutting their prices against each other, that's a good thing because what resolves is lower prices to the consumers. And we want companies to undercut prices against each other, and we want companies to compete with each other because that is what incentivizes them. The fact that a company could fail and collapse under any second if they don't do a good job is what pushes them to make better products. I mean, if there was nothing to, if there was no if there was no competition in the market, and companies could just make a profit no matter what, there's going to be nothing that's going to incentivize them to create a better product because the product they're already selling is already selling. So yeah, what we call it is creative destruction. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes when companies undercut each other, some businesses, they go out of business, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if a business is not able to compete in the market and give a product at a low enough price that people are willing to pay for it, well, then I'm sorry. I mean, it may be sad, but that's just how it is, and that's how it should be, because that company didn't come into your store and force you to close down. They didn't say you must close your doors. All they did was they provided a better service than the alternative, and people just chose to buy that one over the other one, and then that other business, they just didn't do well, or they failed because of that. There's no coercion going on. There's nobody forcing somebody to do something without their consent. Also, the whole lowering of profits thing. If every company is making zero profits and there's no more profits anymore, then that means that every scarce resource is being allocated exactly to where it needs to be allocated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can't see that ever really possibly, like, maybe the percentage of profits may be going down, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because what that means is that you're providing such a low price for the goods that you're selling that you're cutting into your profits in order to compete with other people, which then expands. So like when you look at large companies like Walmart, the percentage of their profits don't go any higher than maybe like 5%, 10%. The reason why is whenever they do make profits, they reinvest it in the company and they try to make it so that they can make more money by lowering their prices and things like that.
They also have other companies. They also have other companies to compete against, which is why the profit margins are so low. I think he was talking about like fast food. I've heard that fast food, like especially McDonald's, has incredibly small profit margins. And the reason why is because fast food is one of the most like economically productive and like highly consumed industry in the entire world. Like people fucking love fast food, man. Yeah. So they'll buy like the hundreds of restaurants that are out there, fast food chains, things like this. And that's probably why the profits are so small, which kind of just goes to show why capitalism works so well, because something as big as fast food chains, where it has the highest amount of competition, has the lowest profit margins. And as we know, communists like small profit margins, right?
Well, yeah, because there's so many people competing with them that it isn't as easy to get ahead of other people as other people. Like if you want to get ahead of McDonald's, you're going to have to put in a lot of work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're going to really have to specialize.
Yeah, you're going to have to provide a better service than McDonald's. And, that's not easy, because McDonald's has been around for a while. It has name recognition. It has really good food, despite what a lot of people might like to say. It may not be good for you, but, their food is pretty good. If not, people wouldn't be coming back every day.
And they've got kiosks now.
Yeah, so,
They've got fucking kiosks.
So the rate of profit falling, it will never go to zero. But the rate of profit falling isn't always necessarily a bad thing. It really just depends on the circumstances.
It's a good thing for the consumer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's why capitalism is for the consumer, because you're not going to get, super low profit margins in communism. Well, you won't get any, as long as no
one's as long as no one's being coerced, I can't see any reason why we should stop them.
Yeah.
Countries like Nicaragua, they're now investing in small business and trying to encourage their civilians to start small businesses and to innovate, because they view that as a better alternative than monopoly. And what apparatus do you use to stimulate small business and break up monopolies besides the state? And when the state's doing that, it's not acting as a monopoly.
For ones the government creates.
So what about, like you said, feudalism, slavery, capitalism? We tried communism. Maybe it's the rise of libertarianism.
Slavery is part of capitalism.
No, it's not.
No, dude.
That is the government. So why does the government more than anything intervening in the free exchange of buying and selling?
Wait. Why does slavery predate capitalism by thousands of years?
Yeah.
If it's a part of capitalism, why does it predate it by thousands of years?
No, that's actually a great point. I'd like to hear that answered.
Let's move on that, because it's the hot topics.
Wait, I don't think they understand capitalism, because capitalism, capitalism is like, it's basically like a natural law. It's not even a natural law. It's just like, it's the natural state of the world, because capitalism is just free trade. And before there's civilization, there's capitalism. I mean, they said this before when they said, like the desert is capitalism. The reason that the desert is capitalism is because the desert is free. So like capitalism is just free trade, and free trade is the natural state of the world. So
yeah, I mean, this is such a stupid ass argument. For one, capitalism again is free exchange of goods and services, like you just said, between two consenting adults. If there's a third party that's being forced into the transaction, well, I mean, it's not a voluntary transaction anymore. So therefore, that's not capitalism; it's slavery. That's why we differentiate from slavery and capitalism. Yeah, it's like a really like how can you have a free exchange of goods and services when there are people who are being forced in that system, and that's kind of like how we look at it on right now. We don't consider what we have right now to be capitalism, and the reason why is because there's an unwilling third party that's forcing themselves upon the people who are transacting within those goods. So yeah, that's not capitalism.
Yeah, exactly.
Too spicy.
No, it's not too spicy. I actually want to wait. I want to respond because you wanted to make that point. You cannot say.
Hannah, I don't want to.
You do.
I love how he made that point, and now when they're breaking his balls about it, he's like, I don't want to. Then why'd you even bring it up? Why'd you bring it up? He brought it up so confidently too. He was just like, actually, slavery, capitalism, and slavery. He brought it up so confidently, and then when they push him on it, yeah, he has nothing to say.
I have no idea what this guy imagines capitalism to be, because he thinks it's like the military, it's government involvement, it's slavery. Like he's talking about the antithesis of capitalism, but whatever.
What do these people? Yeah, like what do these people think capitalism is? Like I really love to know that.
I don't know what they. I mean,
it's pretty much like system that I don't like. That's what it is, pretty much.
Yeah,
like,
that's exactly what it is.
It's like when people use the word fascism, like I don't even really know what fascism is, because I feel like when people use fascism or call somebody a fascist, it's pretty much just person with idea I don't like. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I forget. I think it's like I've heard it's far right authoritarianism, but I don't know the exact definition. But I see what you're saying.
But like people use it so often to describe people that, I mean, whether they're fascists or not, I don't even really know, because I don't really know much about fascism. But like they use it so often, it feels to me like it almost like what they mean by it is pretty much person with ideology I don't like. Like that's really what it seems to me what they mean when they say that.
Take it back.
Hannah,
and then you're gonna try to say it's too spicy for me. No, I got you. Like let me respond to you. It is not capitalism coming in and enshrining enslavement. It has been on the books in multiple kinds of countries, multiple economic systems throughout history. And in fact, capitalism is what got rid of it. This country is what turned the tide on that and started pushing back against this centuries-old awful institution. So to say it's capitalism, I think it's honestly offensive. That's ridiculous.
The purpose
That's such a stupid ass argument.
to maximize the
Queen!
well-being of the population.
Hey, that was my problem.
Wait, what was the question? The purpose of the economy?
The purpose of an economy should be to maximize the well-being of a population.
When
The purpose-
I knew we were going to be debating
this is what I would say. The purpose of an economy is to allocate scarce resources to their most valued use, right? And then the next question is like, okay, well, how do you do that? Well, free exchange, because people don't, when people freely choose what they want, people don't engage in trade unless they value the thing that they're trading more than what they're receiving. So when you have free trade, every time there's a trade, the person who is trading is gaining something more than what they gave up. So that's that's sort of like them maximizing their own well-being.
Yeah. The purpose of an economy should be to I think if people value pleasure and they value lowering pain, then that is what the purpose of an economy should be, is to maximize the well-being of the population. If we can all agree to that. So yeah, I guess that's fine.
Capitalists, I figured none of you would defend monopoly capitalism. You'd be more pro small business, more pro
monopoly
free
capitalism.
You look at our current American system, and it's not like ideal. You're not giving it two.
I'm just waiting someday for somebody to say communism, capitalism, communist capitalism.
Yeah,
there's just capitalism goes at the end of every single word. You know what I'm saying? It just does.
Thumbs up. So yeah, I just think we all agree that we're trying to find the best economic system to promote flourishing among society and the population.
The economic system has the responsibility of taking care of their systems. That's common sense. Shouts out to Thomas Paine.
I mean, yeah.
Seems pretty.
It's kind of self-explanatory at this point. The government should always, or in general, the society should strive to be better and to make lives better for everyone.
But I would say not the government. I think
So
we
cute.
need smaller.
I know.
Government seems to mess everything up.
It's never a yes or no with you, Ty.
Humans, if you talk about the flourishing, you can still see there's tribes that live more hunter-gatherers. Small. I think smaller's
What
better.
about a robot? What
Yeah,
about
but
an
no, but
unbiased
family's
robot?
better.
There's an anime called Psychopaths.
Yeah,
Which
great
you guys don't know it?
show.
Okay,
Hell
perfect. So
Oh,
I
the
think a
Asian girl brings the
centralized
anime in.
brain
So, dude,
computer
crazy.
with
He's holding
multiple,
up the
like,
stereotypes.
millions and millions of minds in it might be more efficient. So a bigger
Spoilers?
government might be more efficient. If we could actually pull it off like Psychopaths, I think it would work.
No,
It's never gonna work.
dude. Okay, just to be clear, for anybody who hasn't watched Psychopaths, spoiler alert. In the end, the big reveal is that the government is this one centralized database that is comprised of like millions of like the most talented minds in the world who live on forever, and they're all combined into this super database. And they're the enemy because they basically decide who lives and dies before they commit crimes and all this stuff. And so the idea is they're supposed to be the enemy. They're supposed to be the antagonist. They're like this super authoritarian entity that decides who lives and dies and what jobs you get and all this bullshit. And it's just funny because she's advocating for the giant evil robot mind database thing.
Are we the baddies here?
You
ever seen that
Are we
video?
the baddies?
Are we the baddies?
I love that meme, dude.
I love how there's like, bro, you're bringing up a fictional cartoon to try to help your point. I'm not sure it's really helping your point, Asian girl, as much as you think it is.
Yeah, it's a rough one.
It's like
it's
it's
a rough
kind of like
one.
when people use like Animal Farm to disprove communism. You know what I mean? Like, okay, it's not real life. And
Yes,
also,
exactly.
I'm not sure a one mind something like that could even be possible. Like multi-million. Like the thing about and I know a lot of people that'll be like, oh, if we had AI, we can have socialism. But the issue is that no AI is going to possibly know what everybody wants at what point and for how much, and like it's quite literally impossible for one mind to coordinate an economy because there's no way for it to know what people want, for how much, what they're willing to give up for it. The only people who could really know that are, well, individuals themselves. The only individuals know what they want. No AI could be able to predict what you want more than at a more efficient rate than an individual person could do themselves. So if you put AI in control of an economy, it's going to be no better than having a price coordinated economy.
Right. And I believe the term is tacit knowledge, I believe. Where it's this idea of there's things that people want, but they can't necessarily articulate. So like shoppers that go into stores, they don't always know what they're searching for and until they see it. And it's crazy because it's like, how can you possibly imagine or create a system that includes for tacit knowledge, which is the knowledge of people don't know they want the thing until they see the thing. Like, how can you possibly account for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you I didn't know I wanted a Samsung phone before I saw it. How we get these products is people basically take risks. They be like, hey, I think people want this, and then they put it out on the market, and then whether or not people buy it or not buy it, tells you whether or not people want it. And AI can't predict that. That's like an AI can't tell you what you want before you know you want it. That's impossible.
And it can't predict it either without price signals.
Yeah,
it can't do it without previous tacit knowledge or previous examples of tacit knowledge being proven correct. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it would need to be like gathering information on like every aspect of our lives, and even then, like it can't know what we want before we want it.
You know what's funny? In order to create the super AI, like in order to, damn, that was loud. You're good.
Sorry about that.
in order for this super AI computer to even know how to put things on the shelves that people want, it would have to look at capitalism, capitalistic economies, and capitalistic shopping malls and stores to know how to gauge what to give people. Because if we didn't give it examples of capitalism in the past, it would literally have nothing to work on at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Can think for itself.
But the
I don't know
problem
if
is
that-
even right now with AI development, though, because the way it starts to gather its information is by absorbing what's already out there.
On the
So they're
internet.
already having so many issues with AI being sexist, being
Yes.
racist, starting to have really toxic views. So I think that it's a nice utopian dream, right? I get your point. But to me, I would never trust anybody or any piece of machinery to come in
But that
and
would be the same
run
with
our
people.
lives.
And our
Realistic,
goal
right?
is to get worker ownership of the means of production and worker control of production. So I actually agree with what you're saying. And one of my buddies, Christopher Halali, is a communist farmer in Virginia, and he lives in a very similar community to you. And you know, he says the same thing. Workers should be able to make these decisions about when to harvest, you know, but they can't do that if all the farmland and all the farming tools and tractors and fertilizers owned by multinational corporations and big agribusiness.
I would like to note that you said control rather than own. And I think that under a capitalist system, workers do control the means of production by using their money as indicators, right? Like the business owners produce things based on the demand that consumers or workers, or the same thing, have.
Our dollar.
That's a
doesn't
good
mean
point.
much.
That's a
Our
very
dollar
good point.
does mean something.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's actually a very, very, very good point. Because, you know, in the end of the day, these producers who are producing things don't just produce things for no reason. They produce it for other people who want that thing. You know what I mean? So, and the people, you know, it may not be directly the workers quite literally owning the means of production, but that means of production could only produce things that person, people want, those workers want. You know what I mean? So, and you know, I don't see, again, like my argument that I made before. There are tons. Like, I think it's a bit dumb to just say like, oh, we should own the means of production because, like, how do you determine what is a means of production? You know, is it something that just produces something else? Is it something that somebody owns that other people work with? You know, could your body produces things? Could your body be a you know, something that produces something? Your iPhone, like if you use your iPhone to make money or to make profit, if you own a land and you pay someone $10 to dig a hole, like, you know, do they own the shovel? You know, like, how do you, I never get a solid answer as to what is the means of production and how they should own it.
Yeah, well, because they can't differentiate the difference between what do they call it? Private property, and sorry, not private property. I forget what they call it. Personal property and
Personal
private
property and private property. Yeah.
And there's
You know,
there's
like,
no distinction there. They can't make any distinction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, technically, like if I hire somebody to dig a hole in my house or something like that, you know, they would basically be saying that the person who's digging the hole owns the shovel because they're using a means of production in order to, you know, provide something that I want. You know, it seems extremely arbitrary.
It's an indicator for what things are valued at.
But if a central decided, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, if the central
They'll do the
government
most
just
efficient,
decides
right?
what it's worth,
No.
like, they have no
Shortages and
indicator.
surpluses, because price is just a signal of scarcity. It
Wouldn't they
signals,
long-term?
hey, there's
Like,
not
they
as
would
many
think
things as
long-term.
this, so the price is going to go up. Or hey, we've got a surplus of this, so the price is going to come down. It's a signal to people, and it signals scarcity. If you remove that signal, that's why centralized economies fail, because there's no way of
economic
allocating
calculation.
resources. There's no economic calculation. And then you have the situation where people have to go into the black market to get things that they need. It creates utter chaos. Versus under capitalism, you have this free flow of goods based on the signals that are going out between merchants and purchasers. It's all very seamless.
I would say that any capitalist.
Yeah,
would agree
if
that
the USSR's economy was so good at allocating things to where people need it, there wouldn't be a black market. You know what I mean? Like, the reason why you have black markets is because there are things that aren't being provided that people want, right? But it's, you know, it's illegal or something like that. You know, like for instance, like drugs, like people want drugs, right? So, but it's illegal. So, you know, so that's
And it's
why
funny because
people are
that's
going out of
actually
their way.
It's funny because, yeah, I mean, I don't want to like beat the dead horse because we already talked about this, but like capitalism gets rid of black markets because it offers everything on the market and at the best prices, the most safest, the most efficient, and it completely caters to the consumer completely. Yeah.
Just quit your job and suffer through the demeaning act of trying to find another one is not a great example of freedom within this country.
Why? I don't understand. It's very easy to quit your job and get another job. Like, it's not difficult.
Why is it demeaning?
Sure. The average person who decides to quit a menial job, who has no access to education to get them a higher paying job, who has no social connection, no cultural connection, no state apparatus helping them in real life, just pure real life.
Nobody owes you a
It's not
job.
as easy as turn off, turn on.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Nobody owes you a job fundamentally. What are you trying to say? If somebody doesn't hire you, we should be allowed to force that company to hire that person? What if the person isn't really good at doing the job? What if, he lives too far and he shows up late every single day? Like, at what point are you allowed to not hire somebody or fire somebody? It's just like such an arbitrary. Yeah, it's just very arbitrary.
Yeah, and if we're being real, if we're being like super real, I think we can agree that nowadays the job market is not doing well at all. Like, the jobs that we have offered are not really great. It's like tons of cashier positions, tons of like minimum wage positions. And I think there's reasons for that. But even in the state that we are in today, where it's like there's not good jobs going around, they still don't owe us, like, they don't owe us jobs, It's like, if I'm a person who like sells my mugs on eBay, I don't owe, hiring a marketing manager, hiring like a team of producers. I don't have to do any of that. It's crazy that people think that they're owed other people's money, or they're owed other people's resources or time, or their business accommodations or anything like that.
This leads to another really great example of government intervention that really screws up. You brought up education. Pretty much anyone in the United States can get into college, no matter how terrible your grades were. That's great. That really leads me to my next point.
It's cheaper in
It is very expensive, but do you know why people are able to go to college despite the fact that it's super expensive? Because the federal government comes in and says, hey, I've got 2 bags of money right here, and I'm willing to give it all to you, even though I know you can't pay it back.
Student debt
And
is
then the colleges
crazy.
say, well, hey guys, it seems when we keep raising our prices, the government just keeps paying it. And we don't even have to worry about if the kids are able to pay it back. We're just going to keep on paying it. The trend line for like
that is a very good example.
In like government.
That's a fantastic point.
Yeah. So what if I could just like explain briefly what he's trying to say? Because basically, when you the government is the exact reason why the schooling system, like the college systems, are so goddamn expensive. The reason why is because when the government came in, the government a while ago basically said, hey, if you're poor or whatever, we're going to pay for your college. So if you're at college and you see that people are paying for their tuition, and the people who are getting it for free don't really care about the price, well, then they could charge as much as they want. And what they're gonna do is they're gonna charge as much as they can so that they can get the most money out of that person who's using a third party in order to pay for their goods. It's kind of like insurance. When you're forced to use insurance for health insurance, and you go to the hospital and they know that you're not paying personally, well, they're gonna try to charge the insurance company as much money as they can so they can get as much money as they can. And so it's like exactly with school. When you pay people's tuitions, the schools notice that, and so all of these schools aren't going to be able to take in every single person. So what they have to do is, in order to restrict the amount of room or the amount of people who are able to come in, they raise the prices so they can make the most amount of money. So if we stopped paying for these college tuitions, and the only people who go to college are the people who are able to pay for it and actually want it, and are willing to pay for it themselves, well, then they would have no choice but to charge what the people who actually want it are able to pay. If people weren't just like, look at a lot of these like college people who complain about college. Oh, there was this one girl, she says, oh, I got $80,000 in debt to go to college. If you went to a bank and you asked them $80,000 to go to for a student loan, do you think they're going to give you $80,000?
They would laugh at you, dude.
Absolutely not. That's ridiculous. No,
they'd be like, "What's your credit score? Credit score?
Absolutely,
620."
Yeah, bro. How the hell do you get $80,000 in debt? There's some people $100,000 in debt, $40,000, $50,000 in debt, and it's just like, dude, how are you getting? Who is giving you this money? Who the hell is giving you this money? It's the government. The government's giving these people large amounts of money that they know they're not going to be able to pay. Like if it was a bank, they would have never given that money. And the reason why is because they know that those people wouldn't be able to pay you back. Like who's going to be able to pay $80,000 for a college loan? Even if you have a good job, that's still fucking expensive as hell. You have to get you would have to get a good job with a really high paying salary in order to pay that back. You know what I'm saying? And be comfortable, you know? So when you put it in the hands of the government, you have the government just handing out money. Yeah, people are gonna go into massive amounts of debt because banks, again, they don't just hand out money like that. They only give money to people whom they know are going to actually be able to pay that back. But the government doesn't do that. So it distorts the market. And all the people who actually do have to pay that don't take advantage of that shit, they charge those people large amounts of money too. So people who actually pay their own way, they have to pay more because of all these other people that aren't paying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nah, dude, it's insane. Now
insane. College is like ridiculously fucking expensive, and also occupational licensing, this and that, yada yada yada.
Yes, and anecdotally, as someone with a bachelor's degree, I can attest that bachelor's degrees do not hold as much power as people think they do. I don't even think master's degrees hold as much power as people think they do. I think in the market we're in currently, we're so devoid of money. There's so much inflation that companies are just not hiring people they're not hiring people at all. So like there's barely any chances to like get in the door with your degree because there's not even opportunities for like the best positions or positions that your degree is in. Like you can't even get a job with a degree anymore. And it's absolutely crazy.
Well, yeah, because the government basically distorted the market. If you have, back in the old days, like people would get paid a lot was because the only people who were able to do that were the people who got the money or went through all the schooling and this and that. But if anyone could go to school and anyone could get a bachelor's degree, right? Well, then there's no longer a scarcity in the market. Well, then, that bachelor degree no longer is worth what it used to be. Like, it's kind of like, here's an example. Like when you're in a, let's say you're at a concert and everybody's sitting down and then one person stands up, that one person is going to get a better view. But if everybody stands up, everyone's going to have the same view again. And that's basically what's going on with like a lot of these college degrees that used to be like a bachelor's degree used to be very, very, very good. Like, if you got a bachelor's degree, like, whoa, that's actually pretty damn good. You would be set for a while. But now now that the
supply and demand,
now that there's like pretty much anyone that takes out a college loan can and then is able to go to the school is able to get a bachelor's degree. It no longer means what it used to be.
Yeah, there's so much supply of people with bachelor's degrees that they're not even scarce anymore. And if you combine that with the economic downturn that we're in currently, that's just no bueno for people who got their degrees. It doesn't help you.
Nope.
Involvement in the education system, especially on the collegiate level, is like identical.
What does government do well? We forgot to ask
prop up capital and prop up big banks.
Oh, come on.
But then you don't like government. Then we all agree we don't like government. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we all agree that we don't like government.
Yeah, right? Oh, God.
Well, that was an interesting conversation. I think the guy with the glasses with the parted hair in the middle, I think he was very, very smart. I think Ty Lopez, I think he has the right idea. But the thing is, I could tell he doesn't really know much about capitalism or communism. He's just a very charismatic figure.
I think he knows a lot about history. I don't think he knows much about economics though. Like he knows a lot about like he knows about like geographic stuff and stuff I have no idea about. But like he knows a lot about like like historical facts and like people from different ages. So he's good on that.
Yeah, and the woman, the capitalist queen that we dubbed her capitalist queen.
Capitalist queen.
yeah, she was doing very, very good. I think that she was a little bit emotional a little bit too emotional in some parts, but she's a woman. But so it's okay. But I think she did a very, very good job. The other guys, I feel like those guys like they just straight up. They're just not very honest. I feel like they lie. They're not very. They're misstate the facts. They whenever there are certain things that benefit them, like for instance, like when it comes to, they use China as an example, whenever it benefits them, but whenever it doesn't benefit them, they're like, oh, well, it's actually not communism. That's actually not communism. They attribute government intervention in other countries to be capitalism, when it absolutely is not. They argue like what they're attacking isn't capitalism. They're attacking cronyism and government intervention, and then they just dub it as capitalism, and then they attack that. So it seems like these people they need to do a little more research.
They do indeed. But yeah, I thought it was a really great video. I'm always happy to see capitalism versus communism videos, because like I think they're so rare, which is crazy. But yeah, I mean, they did a good job. The capitalists did a good job defending it. So
I think they did a pretty good job. And I wish there were ANCAPs, but